at a time where we can start, and we don't want to take all the good things out of the presentation. So we'll save some of our questions if we may. And at this time, let me call to order the oldest Lions Club in the world. I'm Rudy Munguia, and it's my pleasure to see everyone and to have you join us as we have our weekly Lions Club meeting. So today our host is Leonor, and we like to be reminded of what our Zoom procedures are. So Leonor, would you help us, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Leonor, and I'm over here in the cold, in the rain, well, sheltered. So I envy you guys there in Austin with the warmth. But regarding Zoom, you pretty
identify
much
where is where.
Portugal, Europe, the worst place to be in the world right now. Yay! And I say the worst place because COVID cases here are skyrocketing like Italy was last year. So that's why it's one of the worst places to be right now. But I'm home and I'm safe. Regarding Zoom, you all know how it is. Everybody is muted just for the sake of not having feedback. But you are able to unmute yourselves as you wish, but we'll keep it this way until we come up to the questions, so that it's easier to just proceed. But everybody will be muted so that we just hear the speaker one person at a time. Other than that, that's all good. Thank you, Rudy, back to you.
All right, yeah, thank you. Thank you for that reminder. And so as we go into the next part of our agenda and get ready for our Pledge of Allegiance, would you see that you are muted? And today we will be led in the pledge by Judy Saul. So Judy, let me turn it over to you, and then we'll stand as you're able and we'll have the pledge.
She's not muted.
Judy, are you muted, unmuted?
I unmuted myself, but somehow I got muted again. Okay.
All right, we're ready. Just whenever you're ready, please.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the pledge to the Texas flag, Judy.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right.
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. All right. Thank you so much. So, well, it isn't my place to say it, but I will say welcome to February. And February has has many good things, and a couple of things is coming up next weekend when the Super Bowl comes around. So yay for those whose team made it to the Super Bowl. And after that, we have Valentine's still coming up this month. So as I said, it isn't my place to say welcome to February, but I'll just say welcome in any case. All right. Now we're moving on, and we want to recognize our guests. So John Niefler, I believe you indicated you had a guest. So who is your guest, John?
Yes, Rudy, I do. My guest today is my wife, Her Grace, the incomparable Sally Fly.
Well, welcome, Sally. It's always a pleasure to have you join us. All right, and any other guests? I'm not seeing any, but we're happy for Sally joining us and for all our regular members that are joining us today. All right, let me go to announcements, and I want to ask Leonor's help if she will put up a special page for everyone to see. Okay. Oh, that's a little bit hard to read, but let me share with you. This is the, oh, okay, thank you. This is the Excellent Award application that is provided to all Lions clubs throughout the world and in different countries. It is the 2020-2021 Club Excellence Award application. And I just wanted to share this with you. There are 4 categories that are listed. And the first one is membership. And that applies to all of us. We all are Lions and are happy to be part of our Lions Club for a reason, that we all believe in service. We all enjoy our sharing and bonding together, even though at this time we do it virtually. But membership is an important part of all of this, and that's one of the categories. The next category is service, and that is something that Lions do. And we are, as we announce occasionally, we are participating in the Meals on Wheels program. We are still having our eyeglass recycling boxes throughout town that we collect and are sending it to a central point to Midland, Texas, where it is the recycled glasses are recycled further and processed. The third category of this excellent award is organizational excellence. Is our club in good standings? And when it asks that question, are we in good standings as a Lions Club? It's really coming from Lions Club International, LCI. How does our Austin Founder Lions Club compare, or how are we in terms of other Lions clubs throughout Austin, throughout Texas, and really throughout the world? And how do we participate in community activities, in district activities, in state Lions Club activities, and then at the LCI, at the Lions Club International Convention? And and then let me go on to the fourth and last category that is shown, and marketing and communication. This is the social media through Facebook, through our club website, and just general public media that we use. We occasionally are on the Spanish station, making announcements about our program, Spanish TV stations. So anyway, the idea isn't to complete all of this, but just to make everybody aware of what that our club, our Lions Club, is seen in an international way. And so the criterion then are these 4 categories. So we'll be talking maybe a little bit more about that. But I did want to share a little bit. That form may be familiar to the past presidents of our club that have also been involved with this, with completing this form. But we'll be talking more about that. Let me move on to another announcement, and that is that our Lions Club through LCI is involved, has an opportunity to participate in some special activities that are coming up at reduced rates, that usually the rates to attend or to participate are a little bit higher. One, let me begin with membership. We're always happy to welcome and have new members join us, and visitors join our club. But to join, LCI requires a $35 member fee, new member fee, but it's all that $35 is being waived through June the 30th of this year because of our virtual meetings and the COVID pandemic. So that is one opportunity that those that have friends or family that might be interested in inviting them to join, that fee is being waived. And there's another category here where our registration, the registration for the LCI convention, which will be held in June, that will be held virtually. And as a result, the registration fee has been cut back considerably and is $50 if those that are interested and can show your interest before March 31st. So let me just leave it there and just invite those that are interested to take advantage of the reduced or the new member fee being waived and of the $50 registration reduced fee to attend the LCI convention. Okay, let me move on then to birthdays. All right, celebrating a birthday this coming week on February the 9th, Linda Locke. All right, Linda. So happy birthday to Linda on February the 9th. I think Linda's on. I'm not.
Yes, she is.
Oh, there she is. Yeah, there you are, Linda. So happy birthday, early happy birthday. And now, so I believe that's the only birthday that we have shown listed. Okay. This next part, we occasionally in our meetings like to profile our individual members. And so we are doing that today. And our member profile today is my dear wife, Gloria. So let me move out of the screen and give the lady the full attention. So here is we're happy to present and allow Gloria to do her member profile and tell us a little bit about herself. Okay, here we go.
Hello, everyone. I was born in Robstown, a small town west of Corpus Christi. Although I was born in Robstown, I never lived there. I was raised on a farm in a community called Petronila, which is south of Robstown. Petronila is known as the first European settlement in what today is Nueces County. It was founded in 1766 by Capitan Blas Maria de la Garza Falcón, and he called it the Santa Petronila Ranch. Nothing is left of the original Petronila Ranch, but history has recorded its establishment. When Petronila's school opened in 1912, people chose to name the school after the Santa Petronila Ranch. At the time I was there, the area consisted of Petronila School, which I attended through 8th grade, the famous Belk Turkey Farm, and a small convenience store where every day after school, I would buy a Hershey bar for 5 cents. After the 8th grade, all students were transferred to Bishop High School, about 20 miles away, where I graduated. The following fall, I attended Texas A&I in Kingsville, where I met my destiny. Not only did I graduate with a degree in teaching Spanish and English, but most importantly, this is where I met Rudy. On the very first day I was there registering for classes. We got married in 1966. The rest is history, good history. We have 2 children and 3 wonderful grandsons. I began my teaching career in Robstown and then in Corpus Christi. In 1973, Rudy was offered a fellowship to get his administrator's degree at UT Austin. Upon completing his degree a year later, he was offered a job at Austin ISD. So we moved to Austin. He worked in AISD and I taught in the Round Rock School District for 21 years, 18 of those years at Westwood High School. In 2000, I retired with no special plans but to enjoy retirement. However, 2 years later, I was offered a teaching job at St. Andrew's Episcopal School, where I taught Spanish another 9 years. After my last retirement, I joined the Pan American Roundtable of Austin, a women's service organization which promotes knowledge and understanding of our neighboring countries, as well as service to local schools and provides scholarships for young women. Rudy and I are charter members of Hope Presbyterian Church, where we worship and serve both the local and international communities. I just joined Lions this year, but I feel I have been a member for much longer, since I have accompanied Rudy in many Lion endeavors, including 2 international meetings, all of which have been very satisfying and fun, and which motivated me to become a Lion. My main focus as a member of the Downtown Lions Club, once we can get out safely, is to help with the Lions Camp. I have gone with Rudy to the Lions Camp in Kerrville for several years, and I find this a most worthwhile endeavor. Working with young people and helping them to reach their potential, regardless of their abilities, continues to be a focal point of my life. So I look forward to being a member of the Downtown Lions Club. Thank you.
All right. Well, that kind of says everything about where I am, how I got where I am, and with the support and drive like that, I want to thank Gloria for that nice presentation. Okay, and we'll have another member profile next month, and learn a little bit more about another individual. Okay, so it is now time, our special time for our program, and to introduce our speaker, I'd like to ask Gaylord, if you will please do the honors.
It is my honor, Rudy. We are delighted, Senator Eckhardt, that you could join us today and you honor us with your presence. And I've known Sarah an awful long time, and we could have the entire program just discussing her fascinating, diverse, and exceptional background. But first, let me just say her youth was spent in Washington and Houston and New York. And sometime, Sarah, hopefully we could have a long session on your experience in the theater in New York, but that's another story. Her time in Washington was because her father, and she's exceptional in her family having devoted their lives to public service. Her father, Bob Eckhardt, was a longtime and colorful member of the Texas House of Representatives and then the U.S. House of Representatives. And her mother, Nadine, who I had the pleasure of knowing as well, served on the staff of then U.S. Senator Lyndon Johnson. And lunch with Nadine is exceptional to hear and for us to compare stories. Sarah, after graduating with the joint degree that I always cherished from both the UT Law School and from the OBJ School, became Travis County assistant Travis County prosecutor, and followed by a term as county commissioner, and then of course her distinguished service as our county judge. And I hope you will take the time to read the bio and the description of her service. And while she's a Democrat, I just can't let it be passed without noting how able she is to work with, as they say, across the aisle, that is with Republicans. My longtime dear friend and a real character, the Gerald Daugherty was the only Republican on the commissioner's court when she served as commissioner and then judge, and he described her as smart a person as I've ever been around in my life, praised her for her public service and dedication, and said that her leaving as county judge is going to be a huge blow to our court. I just think that reflects, say the least, the ability of Sarah knowing how to get things done. And pardon my referring, Senator, to you as Sarah, but I feel like I've known you so long through you and your parents that it makes me feel good to be able to call you Sarah. But then Sarah was elected last year in a special election to succeed Kirk Watson, and to say the least, she will be exceptional in service in probably the toughest district, toughest session that I'm aware of, and I've been involved in it almost 6 decades. But just even how, as been noted before by Bill and the senator, just how they will be able to function during the pandemic, not to mention trying to speak to the substantive issues involved in the pandemic, as well as economic catastrophes with it, as well as doing what they have to do every session and pass that budget. But Sarah, and thank you too. I know a lot of things don't get done without staff, and I just salute you on the outstanding work and staff work that Andromeda did in order to make this possible, and thank her. And I thank you for making her available. But Sarah, welcome. You honor us with your presence, and the floor is yours.
Well, thanks so much. And I just want to say, Tommy Cowan, your stuffed lion behind your head is so awesome, but Gaylord's mane outshines the mane of that stuffed animal far and away.
Oh.
It's great being with y'all. So many friends on this call. Oh my God, John and Sally, I haven't seen y'all in a while. It's so good to see you. I was just on a call with Drew Sheverly earlier today, so it's good to see you again, Drew. So many great people. I wanted to give y'all just a quick and dirty on what's likely to happen at the legislature. Like y'all, I mean, y'all should be telling me. Many of y'all have deeper experience in the legislature than I do. So I think I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. This is going to be a strange session. It's not going to be a very productive session. It could have been far more productive, but I am reluctant to report, and I don't mean this in a shamey, blamey way, because that's just such a waste of time. But I am sorry to report that the state level of government has atrophied. The muscle for state government has just, it has atrophied to the point where we're not getting a whole lot of activity out of state government. Most of the funding is passed through from the federal government, or it is riding the coattail of your local property and sales taxes. So I am going to the state government at a time where it's not particularly robust, but that's why I'm going. I chose to move from local government. My father used to make fun of me for being interested in local government. He said all the actions at the federal level, but this was, I came of age during the Reagan administration. I said, Papa, I'm pretty sure that the federal level of government is going to start to atrophy, and it's going to be at the local level that we're going to begin to see a lot of innovation. And I think I was right. I think we've seen a tremendous amount of innovation at the local level. And for the last 4 decades, we've seen a pretty substantial atrophication at the federal level, exceeded only by atrophying at the state level in Texas pretty profoundly. So the legislature is not going to be super productive. But there are some very big ticket items that I think show great promise. And I'd love to have y'all's help with them. I think there is bipartisan support for the repatriation of Medicaid dollars. And we absolutely need to accomplish that. I think that it is a reasonable assumption that 30% of Texans are without insurance in this pandemic. The statistic before the pandemic was under 20%, and that was largely due to expansion of insurance coverage under Obamacare, even despite the state refusing Medicaid. But now, since we are so heavily reliant on employer-based insurance for people who are under Medicare eligibility, who are too young for Medicare, it is probable that we're at about 30% uninsured. A person who has insurance is 4 times more likely to seek out services than a person who does not have insurance. So in this pandemic, we really do need to repatriate those Medicaid dollars. For every dollar of investment, we would get $7 to $9 back in income taxes we have already paid to the federal government, which are now going to some other state because our state leadership has refused to repatriate those dollars. So stay tuned. We're going to look for a Republican vehicle to make that happen. It will need to be a Republican vehicle. Gaylord probably would have something to say about that.
Amen. Amen. You're right.
And I'm good with that. This is not a party issue. This is a people issue. We must expand healthcare coverage. So there's that. Broadband is also a big bipartisan effort. There is a dawning realization, sped by COVID-19, that broadband has become a necessary utility for the participation in the economic life of our communities. We are accessing healthcare electronically. We are accessing commerce electronically, jobs electronically, education and training electronically. To participate in commerce, you simply have to have electronic connectivity. And so I think that while that is a bipartisan effort, there is no state money for it because the state has stopped really analyzing its revenue sources for adequacy. So we will be looking to Federal CARES Act dollars and a pretty significant infusion of money in the broadband space to get universal broadband all across the state of Texas. Where the Texas Legislature is going to be very important in that effort is designing the underlying regulatory and administrative scaffolding for those deep dollars to partner up with the private sector to make this happen. So when I talk about, regulatory regime, is there a broadband office in the governor's economic development office, or is it over in the Public Utilities Commission? What kind of laws need to change around eminent domain in order to run fiber? What's going to be the split between cell phone technology and hardwired fiber technology in order to get out to rural areas and things like that. So I'm super engaged in that and very excited to work with my Republican colleagues on that. Also, we've got to recover our economy from COVID-19. I don't see a lot of strategy at the state level for recovering our economy from COVID-19. I think that the belief is that the private sector is going to come up with a model and everything's going to be good. But Drew is on this call, and just earlier, Drew Sheberly and Tamara Atkinson and I were talking about workforce in Travis County. And Drew very cogently pointed out the state was unprepared for going from what was considered full employment and under 3% unemployment one day to 3 months later being at 12% unemployment. One pandemic, 3 months, and we went from full employment to a pretty significant slice of our state uh, um, without a paycheck. If you were working in the restaurant industry or the bar industry or the hotel industry, if you were a pedicurist, manicurist, if you were a hairdresser, if you were working in one of those face-to-face industries that were not considered essential, you were suddenly without a job. With unemployment benefits, maybe. And if you had unemployment benefits, they have now run out. So we do need to do a lot of work with regard to workforce development. We don't have a very robust plan at the state level, but we have a great plan in our local economies. And that includes getting folks trained up for the jobs that exist today instead of the jobs of yesterday. Getting them trained up for jobs that have career longevity rather than those extra job type gig economy jobs, which are great, but they're not going to sustain you into your 40s, 50s, 60s. They're not going to give you any retirement. They're not going to provide you any employer-based health insurance. So those are 3 areas that I'm working on pretty intensely. And I'm happy to have y'all's assistance in it. I also wanted to remark on y'all's tremendous ability to create real volunteer initiatives. Your work with Meals on Wheels, your work in the community to make sure that the least among us have their needs met is so important. Our food banks are in deep need right now, so that Meals on Wheels work is crucial any day, but it's particularly crucial now. I would also suggest that one area that's going to get short shrift because of the pandemic, so we really need to lean in on it, is redistricting. And your activity around redistricting could really be key. There are hearings going on right now in the Texas Senate around redistricting, and blessedly, and I thank Senator Huffman for this, she has made those hearings virtual. They're the only hearings in Senate committees that are allowed to be virtual at this point. So please do testify on redistricting. We don't have maps to look at yet. We don't even have data to look at yet. And so you may feel that it's futile to make testimony now. It's not. Start beating the drum now, insisting on fair maps in redistricting. Also, keep your eye on the ball with regard to redistricting of State Board of Education and courts of appeals. These fly under the radar and people don't pay attention to them. But if there is a redistricting of courts of appeals and a reduction of our overall numbers of courts of appeals, that means that we have less justice. It just does. It means we will have less justice and slower justice, and we will have one-sided justice. It will make it more probable that our courts of appeals will be held by a single party. And whether that's Democrat or Republican, that's not good. Our courts of appeals judges should represent the full spectrum of our communities, not just one side. So if y'all are interested, I did put into the chat a number of resources on redistricting if you're interested in that. One is All on the Line, which is the organizing entity for redistricting in Texas that's attached to the National Democratic Redistricting effort. The other is Common Cause, because they're nonpartisan. If you would prefer to go at this from a nonpartisan route. I don't have a link for Republicans because I'm not one, but I'm sure that they've got a good mapping and redistricting push as well. And then also there's a great tool called Map Builder, where you can draw your own redistricting map. Your Texas Senate district, your Texas House district, your US congressional district, and you could send it to your legislators saying, this is my community of interest as I see it. This is who I think should be in this district in order for it to have a true community of interest. It's a fascinating tool, super fun to use, and that might be a great workshop to get together virtually and build maps and talk about what the trade-offs are. And that would prepare you extremely well to give testimony about what's at stake and where the line should be drawn. I also threw into the chat a link to Austin Public Health for any volunteering anyone might want to do, assisting Austin Public Health at reaching out to people to help them make a vaccination plan. I'm working regionally with Bastrop County, Williamson County, Hayes County, as well, of course, Travis County and the state to try and build a one-stop hot list so that people don't have to sign up at 6 different places. Instead, they could sign up at one place, and then all of the providers could then pull John Smith off of the hot list and say, I've got John, I got John's first vaccine, and I'm going to get John's second vaccine. John doesn't need to do anything more. I'll send him a text saying if he can get over to Seton, say, between 3 and 5 on one of these 3 days, I can get John a vaccine. And then John's information can be downloaded from the hot list and then uploaded back up into the hot list for sharing with the state and with the Center for Disease Control. I think that that would make us much faster at getting to herd immunity. We'd be able to pull down larger amounts of vaccine when they become available and get them in arms fastest. We're in a race against the viral mutation. And so if you are interested in assisting Austin Public Health at reaching out to folks and helping them get a vaccine plan until we get that one-stop shop, that would also be an area that would be really, really helpful. So I'm going to stop there and get y'all's questions and insights because that's way more fun for me. It's totally selfish on my part.
Leonor, yeah, well, thank you very much, Senator. And we'll see what questions are coming your way now. And I'm going to ask Leonor if you would monitor this and recognize those with their hands up.
Sure. Tommy, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, please.
I did, I believe. Welcome, Senator, and your comments and your game plan is right on target for you. I need to say, just honestly, I had an experience with what was in a commissioner that was very unfortunate one day. As I was walking to a meeting, I was very near run over by a bicyclist. And what I recall, I was all set to stand on the curb and give this helmeted bicyclist my what for, only to determine that it was our commissioner, and she was complying with the ride your bike to work day. So she is actually living her real life. So no suits being filed, everything is quite well. I do want to ask you if you're aware that your predecessor was a member of our club and added many, many times to our realities of life in Austin, Texas, and in the state. And I would be remiss if I did not mention to you the opportunity would be for you to be a member of our club, and I would be happy to sit and discuss the specifics. There are no attendance requirements, and I'll be handling all of your finances, so there's no cost to you. But we would love to have another senator as part of our club. So please give that consideration, and I'll be back in touch with you to see if we can tie up a string there. The last item I have, and I can only say this of many of the people that you know that are with our Lions Club, I've been impressed by your ability to acknowledge, recognize, and deal with issues. Sometimes not popular, sometimes very difficult. And I, from your list that you've given us today, I'm impressed with all you've taken on your plate, and I'm quite certain you'll do it well. I'm interested in your take, and maybe even Gaylord's, on the 2022 election of governor. If, as I understand correctly, yesterday Beto made some comments about thinking he might be giving consideration. What are y'all thoughts about our future governors? I'll leave it at that.
You know, for a politician, I'm woefully unprepared to answer that question. You know, the governorship is a great executive position, and like I said, I was an executive previously in my small way at the county. An executive position with a person in it who is really ready to tackle the big problems and spend some political capital to do it could be a game changer for the state of Texas. And I frankly don't care whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, but we need a governor who is going to spend the political capital to build a state governance scaffolding that actually helps, instead of a state government that basically cedes the field to the private sector, which we have a great private sector and they're pedaling as fast as they can. But a private company is not going to solve our healthcare crisis. A private company, we've got private companies that are doing their damnedest to help us recover and respond in this pandemic, but they are begging for a governing, an organizing principle at the state level, so that we have a leveling and a scaffolding to hang all of our efforts on. Until we have a governor, Republican or Democrat, who is really willing to govern, the governorship will be a wasted title. If it's just a stepping stone to the feds, we need somebody who's interested in state government. And when we get that person, then the state will truly be great.
Good call. Excellent.
Gaylord, go ahead, and then Bill after you.
I will just add quickly, I couldn't agree more with Sarah's sentiments, and we've seen some of that type of governance in the past, but it's been a long time. That it'll be very interesting to watch the gubernatorial race in 2022 from the perspective of other possible Republican candidates. It seems that the division among Republicans we see nationally, but particularly in the Congress, seems to also have been has affected Republicans in Texas. And what I mean by that is when you have the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, and now he's most unusual, Allen West was a one-term congressman from Florida and moved here. But when you have him and our Republican ag commissioner protesting at the governor's mansion for the steps that the Governor Abbott took on the pandemic, and all the criticism from some House members, you wonder how much of a rumble's there. I think it would fall because Governor Abbott is sitting on $40 or $50 million right now. He could probably double that by election time in 2022. Beto did raise $80 million in his race against Cruz, but a lot of that was anti-Cruz money. And I guess I would have to say, for perspective and to take a position, I'm not terribly enthusiastic about being the change that Sarah so articulately suggested occurring as a result of the governor's race in 2022.
So Gaylord, Tommy, Lyons, I'm a Democrat, but what about Joe Stroud?
Oh, I'm too prejudiced. I think so highly of Joe Strauss. I've known him since he was a pup. He's from such great lineage as far as parents and his rearing. I'm just really concerned about whether a moderate Republican like Joe that makes so much sense, and he really does on so many issues. He was very instrumental, for example, in working with Dr. Zerwas, who was chair of the Appropriations Committee, and he's now the Executive Vice Chancellor for the System for Health. But Dr. Zerwas in 2015 put together exactly the plan you were talking about, Sarah, a Medicaid expansion plan, as it's called in the media. He had every committee chairman in the House committed his plan. They took it to the House floor and immediately Governor Perry said he would veto it. And at that time, that would have meant 90 billion additional dollars for Medicaid that, understand, goes to the handicapped and to the elderly and to the poor, and at the price tag that Sarah had mentioned. And those are the kind of things that a Joe Strauss would support. I just don't see him winning the Republican primary.
So maybe we need I am actually floating some bills this session to make it easier for a third-party candidate to get on the ballot. And it causes me some pain to do that, but I think it's going to be necessary if the best and brightest in the Republican Party cannot survive the primary. It doesn't do the Democrats good to have a Republican Party that has gone this wackadoodle, any more than it would serve the Republican Party to have a Democratic Party that goes wackadoodle. It takes us away from the business of governing to things like bathroom bills, to things like a special police force to take over downtown Austin, things that are not issues of state governance, that are purely political. And so I actually, my father is rolling in his grave, but I am floating a piece of legislation to make it easier for third-party candidates to get on the general election ballot.
I
Bill?
don't share your enthusiasm about the possibilities of the role or effect of a third-party candidate, but I salute you for trying. And Sarah, would you comment additionally on the two hot kind of local issues the governor has advocated, that is having DPS literally take over policing of central Austin, and secondly, the governor's continued to attack the city and the position of the city on homeless regulation and proposing a statewide proposal? Do you see prospects for either of those passing, in at least in some form?
I do. I think those will be the bathroom bills of this legislative session. I'm a big believer in local control. And I think that these issues of policing and public safety are best handled at the local level because there are nuances that the state can never know. And if you try a one size fits all at the state level, I'm a former prosecutor, and we see it in the penal code all the time. If the penal code becomes too command and control, it actually creates injustice rather than helping us promote justice. So I believe that the governor and the lieutenant governor will probably succeed in some form of statewide prevention of rolling back of camping bans. I think they'll probably succeed at passing some bill about emergency takeover of local police forces. But I also think once the bill passes, they will juice it for the political benefit and never use it. Because we already have 10 police forces, law enforcement agencies that can respond in the central business district of Austin. There are 10. The state already has the Department of Public Safety. And we already have the Austin Police Department. We also have the Travis County Sheriff's Office. We have University of Texas Police. We have Austin Independent School District Police. And we also have 5 constables' offices. That's 10 law enforcement agencies, all of which coordinate, all of which are on a unified radio dispatch to respond to incidents. Of course, DPS has primacy on the Capitol grounds, but they routinely call in APD and TCSO assistants, and vice versa. APD routinely calls in DPS and TCSO assistants in the Central Business District. Adding an 11th police department for downtown Austin and stealing the local fisc to fund it is both policy foolish and probably unconstitutional. So even if the governor passes it, they'll probably never implement it. It's the bathroom bill of this session.
All right, well, thank you, Sarah. Bill, would you go ahead and ask your question, please? Unmute yourself.
You're not unmuted, Bill.
On the lower left, there we go, perfect.
Thanks again for being with us, taking time out of your schedule. It's a busy, busy time. 2010 census showed Texas to have a population of about 39 million. And as I understand it, projections are we could have 43 million by the 2020 census final count. California is losing population, we're gaining. And I assume that that shift in population, and we could gain, I hear, as many as 3 new seats in the U.S. House of Representatives as a result of this. But I assume the 2020 census will play a pivotal role in redistricting and looking at the demographics and where those shifts in populations occur, which I assume will be at the major cities. That's where the jobs are. You have a take on this?
Definitely.
Your thoughts?
We definitely stand to pick up 3 congressmen. Drawing the districts for those 3, I would suggest if you want to take a look at the Senate Special Redistricting Committee's website, there are some great slides from the state demographer that shows you what the likely population projections are going to be under the 2020 census, and which districts are overpopulated and which districts are underpopulated. And you will see very, very quickly that the districts that are overpopulated are in the major metro areas where the growth is off the charts. Almost all of the rural positions, the rural districts are underpopulated at this point. So it stands to reason that those new congressional seats should go to the urban cores where the population is expanding so quickly. But I will lay you dollars to donuts. They will try to avoid that, because if you draw a district that's anchored in an urban core, it will be won by a Democrat. So you will see amazing jujitsu and all kinds of twisting and turning and gerrymandering in order to avoid anchoring those new congressional seats in major metropolitan areas. That's why testifying now is so important, to say you want fair, compact districts drawn that contain true communities of interest, and that Texas is not going to tolerate gerrymandering anymore. We are the poster child for gerrymandering.
May I add one?
Go ahead, Ann.
Sarah, hello. Thank you so much for being with us today. I have 2 topics that I wanted to bring up and ask you to comment on. One is our state's water resources. And I heard a very interesting lecture recently, projections for the future. And the best I can tell, the assumptions that we're working under were from the droughts in the 1950s. And they are far from the worst droughts this area has ever experienced. And with the projected population growth, the lack of water is going to be significant. The other thing I would like for you to comment on is the rollout of the vaccines. One, I wonder if Texas is getting its fair share of the vaccine, and then why we have had such a dismal response to getting the shots. I found out that our 22 regional advisory councils, the trauma regional advisory councils, had trained on this very thing, to do a mass vaccination in the event of some highly contagious disease. And there's only 1 rack in the entire state that's actually being used.
Yes, this book, Preparing for Pandemics in the Modern World, was written in 2019, published by Texas A&M University Press. Texas A&M houses the TDEM, the Texas Department of Emergency Management, And one of the co-authors of this book was Dr. Hellerstedt, who is over the Department of State Health and DSHS, Department of State Health Services. 2019, y'all. It was written in 2019, before the pandemic. The state was completely unprepared. When people say, well, we didn't see it coming, that's simply not true. 2019 is the copyright date for this. Let me talk to water first and then come back to that, the vaccine issue, Anne. Water is a similar problem. We simply have our head in the sand at the state level about our water supply. Our groundwater supply is still mired in a legal paradigm that was created in the 1800s. Called the rule of capture, before we had hydrological science and climatology and meteorology that would assist us in understanding how our groundwater had interchange across basins and with our surface water, and how it would expand, contract, and be impacted by climatology and meteorology. We are not living in the 1800s any longer, and nor are we an agrarian society. We are an urbanized society, and we are reliant on that water supply in all kinds of ways, not just our drinking water supply, but there are many more industries besides agricultural that are reliant. Samsung, for instance, that's looking to expand here, is absolutely reliant on a predictable water supply. Chip manufacturing takes a tremendous amount of water. So we've got to change the rule of capture. For those of you who don't know, rule of capture for groundwater, whoever has the deepest straw with the most powerful suck gets all the water. So you can suck your neighbor's well dry, whether you're an industrial neighbor or a residential neighbor, and there's no recourse, because in the 1800s, nobody knew about basins. They knew they existed. They didn't know how deep they were, how wide they were, what their replenishment rate was, what their interplay was with the alluvial aquifer, none of that. But now we do. We know that they're connected. We know what their recharge rate is. So we need to change that up. And we are reliant on river authorities that were created in the early part of the 1900s. And thank God they were created. But we really need a statewide water plan. I would like to help with that. I was placed on the Water, Agriculture, and Rural Affairs Committee. And I think the Lieutenant Governor thought that it would be great to put me there because he thought I had no experience in this issue. I don't think he's aware that I've been working in water law for the last 20 years because, of course, Travis County is deeply invested in groundwater and surface water issues. And now with Bastrop County too, I'm in the unique position of representing a wet county and a dry county simultaneously. So I'm very excited to be able to do that work. There's some good things happening there. On the vaccine front, this, as I said before, the muscle at the state has atrophied, that even those who are willing, like Dr. Hellerstedt, who knew that this was coming, even those who are willing, there's just not enough scaffolding at the state level to deal with the vaccine distribution. All the state can be relied upon to do is to make the request of vaccines in adequate amount to the feds. That's where they should concentrate. Make sure that the request is adequate and then get it out to the folks who can actually put needles in arms. So I am working at the local level, the regional local level, so that we can have the best distribution system possible with our private and our public sector collaboration. So Williamson County Public Health, Bastrop County Public Health, Travis County, Austin Public Health, working together with Seton, Baylor Scott and White, Austin Regional Clinic, People's Clinic, Central Health and Community Care, HEB, Walgreens, so that folks can get a vaccine as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, and then make sure they get their second one too. That's the way we are going to be able to increase our amount. The feds will give us more if they know we can push more. The more effective and efficient we are, the more vaccines we will get. In many ways, this is going to be a performance-based distribution. If we are ineffective, they will give it to somebody else, which means that if Zapata County is ineffective, Zapata County residents are going to have to drive up to Bexar County, where they are effective at getting the vaccine out. If if folks in, name it, folks up in Burleson County are super effective, then that means people from McClendon County will drive over to Burleson County to get their vaccines.
Yeah.
And that's not perfect by any stretch, but that's how it's going to go. The more effective we can be, if we end up drawing people in from the panhandle because we're more effective, so be it. Let's get on it.
Senator Eckhardt, thank you very much. We have time for maybe just one more question. If let's see, I think John and Sally.
Sarah, it's Sally. Do you still have, John has another question, but my question is, Policy Pints still on for tonight?
Policy Pints are still on tonight, and the subject matter is the state leadership's attempt to silence local governments at the Texas Legislature. They're calling it the banning of taxpayer-funded lobbyists. But let me tell you what that actually is. When I was county judge, I worked long hours. I usually worked a 60-hour week. And Sundays, I had to say no work on Sundays. I'm just not working on Sundays because I was pretty much working 6 days a week. I could no more take off a full day to sit there in a legislative hearing waiting to talk for 3 minutes, while 53 other elected officials and a court system and a bond project and all kinds of stuff were just left hanging while I sat there. So I hired somebody, Commissioner's Court hired somebody to go sit there for us and represent our interests and walk the halls and talk to them about our interests and apprise them of how their activity affected Travis County. There is a movement afoot to prevent us from doing that so that only local elected officials themselves can come testify. So that's what the Policy Pint is about tonight. And also every Thursday morning from 8 to 9, I still have my coffee jolts. So if you want to drop by Zoom, those don't have a topic. Those are just open conversation. So people are welcome to drop in on a coffee jolt, give me my assignments, tell me what's going on. And then the Policy Pints are every other week, and those are more curated. I put together a panel on a specific issue that seems to be of deep interest to the community.
And all those details are on your saraheckhardt.com?
Yeah, they're on my Facebook page. So that's the easiest way to get the link, is to go to my Facebook page, which I think is like Sarah Eckhardt Travis or something like that.
It comes as an email to me, so I'm not sure on the Facebook. So
yeah, if you go on Facebook and just search for Sarah Eckhardt, there's a few other Sarah Eckharts in the country, but my picture comes up.
The best one, yeah.
There's really good ones out there, super interesting Sarah Eckharts that are far more interesting than I am.
John, if you have a question.
Well, you answered it partly, but in respect to the issue of municipalities and local government having the opportunity to be represented by lobbyists, if that's the answer, what was the question? What's going on that has created someone's sense of a need for this change to prevent lobbyists from representing local government?
It's really born out of the tax conversations at the state level. Whenever the state starts talking about school finance, or transportation finance, or healthcare finance, the local entities like hospital districts, school districts, counties, and cities send their lobbyists to describe what their fiscal policy will do in the field. So on Medicaid expansion, for instance, they say, Obamacare is bad and we're going to be tough and we're not going to take Medicaid expansion because we're strong and we're tough. And then the hospital districts show up and say, well, if you don't take Medicaid expansion, then we're going to have to increase our local property taxes that fund our hospital district.
Right.
Because we will be taking on a lot more patients who have no health insurance. They don't want that being said. Or if they say, we're going to be, property taxes are terrible and it's the locals' fault. And so we're going to cap the locals at 3.5%. And then the city and the county lobbyists come and say, well, if you cap the locals at 3.5%, who will be building your state roads? Who will be doing your state courts? And who will be handling your state safety net? Because you people don't put any money toward those three things. They don't want us up there saying that. Or when they say, we're going to refuse to increase the base rate for educating our children in K through 12. They don't want the school districts coming and saying, what is your base rate based on? Because by our calculation, that's not the average cost to educate a child. That's about 40% below what the average cost is to educate a child from 10 years ago. So they don't want a school district's lobbyist coming to tell them that. So it's all around finance. That's the problem that they're trying to solve, is that as they continue to atrophy, they don't want people coming and saying what the consequences of that atrophy are.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to call time now. I'm afraid we've gone a little bit over, but Senator, again, thank you so much for sharing your time and all this wonderful information as we look and see how the legislature is going to be working each day.
Rudy, Robert had his hand up for a really long time though, but I could reach out to him separately.
Well, would you mind staying just for a few minutes? I need to call the meeting so we can adjourn. And then if it's all right, we can stay on a few extra minutes if your time allows.
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, let me get back to the agenda and say, and look at next week's meeting. And next week's meeting, I believe Mem Ruby will be bringing us that program. So Mem, could you tell us about that, please? Ma'am, are you on?
No.
Oh,
No,
she's not.
she's left the building.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is Mac on? Mac Ragsdale?
Mac has also left the building.
Okay, well, that's I'll share a little bit about what I have information about next week's program. We will have another Ruby contact with us next week. Rusty Ruby will be bringing us a program, and I mentioned this because we've enjoyed so many of the Ruby family in the past that have brought us programs. But Rusty Ruby will be bringing us our program next week, and it will be consistent returns through private lending. And so then the questions are, what is it and why should you care? Well, that's as much buildup as I can make for give for next week's program, but we look forward to hearing the presentation from Rusty Ruby.
And everybody should get an invitation. You should get an invitation in the mail tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. And And so I will just add these couple of announcements or reminders. Our Meals on Wheels service call this month is on February the 19th. So those of you that can join us, please put that on your calendar on February the 19th. And then this last notice, those of you that may not know, we send our condolences to Patty Robinson. Her brother passed away in North Carolina due to COVID issues this past week. So those of you that may want to reach out to Patty and give your support that way. Otherwise, the senator has graciously consented to stay on a little bit longer to answer any other questions. And for now, we have reached the end of our agenda and we are now adjourned. So thank you all for coming. And so who has a question that may, if you'll raise your hand, please.
We had Sandy and then Roberto. Sandy,
Okay.
You need to unmute yourself, please. Oh, you got it. You got it. Go ahead, Sandy. We can't hear you.
Finally got the chat.
Okay, there we go. We still can't hear you. All right, Roberto, would you go ahead, please? And we'll come back to Sandy. We need to unmute Roberto.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Good to see you.
How you doing?
Good.
Back in the 90s, I was in the workforce, Travis County Workforce Board, Commissioner Board, or whatever they call it. And they talk a lot about training and education of the workforce. You mentioned workforce. So that's one of the questions. What are you doing there for training? Now, I was also in Capital Idea we trained hundreds of nurses. So that's one example. The other question is in immigration and the DACA, and what is the state doing about the immigration and DACA, because that's also part of the workforce.
Absolutely. So you know this terrain really well. Travis County and both the capital area urban workforce board as well as the rural workforce board has a great plan for training up people that predates the COVID pandemic. We have, as you well know, we have our rapid employment model as well as our gainful employment model. Capital Idea is an example of our gainful employment model. Usually takes a little bit more time and more wraparound services, but it has really great gains. Our rapid employment model is a fast turnaround reemployment model for people who say were in the construction industry but don't have an electrician or plumber license and want to come in and train up quickly for a higher paying position in the same job field. The pandemic hit and a lot of people needed to come in for rapid reemployment. So now we have, and Drew could speak to this, now we have basically a supercharged rapid reemployment model where people are coming in who were formerly in the restaurant business or in the personal services business, who are coming in for rapid retraining for healthcare, IT, skilled trades, so that we can get them back into the workforce as quickly as possible. The state is not putting any money toward this to speak of. This is mostly federal money. It's coming in through CARES Act dollars now as well. And so this is mostly federally funded and locally funded. And we're gonna keep banging away at that. So I'm very excited about that. We've got a great plan and we're continuing to work the plan. It does require in times of COVID that people have broadband access because most of this retraining is virtual and most of these jobs have a virtual element to them. So we're really working hard on that piece. I'm looking forward to a day where the state is going to be an important partner in that, but right now they're frankly not. So, but I'm working toward that.
Good.
On the immigration piece, that's one where I want the state to get the hell out of it. Immigration is a federal matter. We should not have state border security. That is a ridiculous waste of money. We are blowing absurd amounts of state dollars on border security that don't need to be spent. That is a federal issue. The feds under Trump did it very badly, with disastrous results for human beings. We are changing that politically. To the extent that we need to provide services to individuals who are born in another country, we should. The construction industry is a great example of that, both a great and a tragic example of that. We called the construction industry an essential employment during COVID, knowing full well that many construction workers are undocumented. They have no status. They're afraid to access services, and that they would die and their families would die in extraordinary numbers during COVID-19. Our undocumented community will reach herd immunity faster than the rest of us, but at extraordinary cost, because we continued to call construction an essential service. And that's very troubling to me. We will have a generation of people who were born in another country who have died so that our construction industry could continue unabated.
All right, Sandy, thank you for that, Senator. Sandy, would you go ahead, please?
Yes. What about getting it took me 2 weeks to get an appointment to get my vaccine, but what about in the poorer communities, the Black and brown communities, where the COVID is hitting worse, but yet they aren't getting the vaccine, at which they need to get? Also, part 2, getting computers and Wi-Fi to the poorer homes, because these children, while there was virtual learning, weren't getting any education because they didn't have the computer or the Wi-Fi to get it.
Mm-hmm. So 2 things on the vaccine. The public health departments in Williamson, Travis, and Bastrop have all entered into a collaborative and working with the private sector so that we can pull down vaccine into the health departments, so that we can get them to the people who are least likely to have access, least likely to have a medical home. So I am really proud of the work that Bastrop Public Health and Travis County Austin Public Health are doing to reach out into our communities of color and get them the vaccines. We do have an issue where we are literally calling through people who we know are 65 and older in Travis County and reaching people who say they're not going to get the vaccine because they hear that it's deadly and that it's dangerous and they don't want it. So we have 2 problems. We have a very low supply, and we have some mythology out there that's super dangerous. So anybody who does want to volunteer with Austin Public Health to do those phone banks and talk to folks who are 65 and older in our underserved community and help them get a plan to be vaccinated through Austin Public Health, please do. We are pulling down, and the whole collaborative is working for public health to pull down those vaccines and get them to the communities that are least served. Bastrop is also doing a great job of that. So I'm very, very proud of what they're doing. We don't have enough vaccine yet, but the collaborative is working hard to make sure that our underserved populations have actually comparable, if not higher, access. And we're working hard for that. On broadband, there's a couple of ways for low opportunity families to get broadband, to get assistance in getting broadband, either through supports of the cost, the monthly fee, or through hardware and training. One is through Workforce Solutions. So if you come in through Workforce Solutions for retraining and you need broadband access, they can help you get plugged in, quite literally, and also through the school districts. If you've got kids and they're struggling with broadband because you're trying to work at home and your kids are also trying to school at home and everyone's using the same bandwidth and they're all on their cell phones, the school districts have been hugely helpful. The CARES Act funneled a tremendous amount of money through the school districts to help low-income families get access to Chromebooks for their students. And so I would strongly suggest that folks work through Workforce Solutions and also work through their school districts in order to get those price supports from their provider and also equipment. In our urbanized areas, we're pretty good on having bandwidth. Where we struggle is in households being able to afford access to the bandwidth and the hardware to access that bandwidth. But there are programs out there during the pandemic, and I'm going to try very, very hard to make sure those programs continue after the pandemic.
Thank you.
All
Sarah,
right, I think
Tommy.
that's, oh, sorry, Tommy.
Sarah, I'd like to send you some information. John Neiffer and I would like to visit with you about joining our club as an honorary member. Where would I send information for you to make sure it doesn't get lost in all your other political traffic?
I have her email address if you want. She, Senator Sarah has shared it with us, and I'll send it to everybody, okay?
We would like to seduce, con, trick, treat, or something to get you looking at our club as possible membership. So look out for it. We're coming.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, y'all. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator, for staying longer. Rudy, do you want to close it up?
Yeah, thank you, Senator, again, for your gracious way of presenting very difficult issues and for your generous giving of your time. So you enjoy, and to our members, thank you for joining us. And I believe this will conclude our Zoom meeting. So
thanks so much. And thanks, Gloria, for your beautiful story.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. See you
Bye-bye.
next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Darn.